Hello, and welcome to another video with videos to fall asleep to. In this video, we will cover the history of West Indies cricket. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Think about what makes a national team: a shared flag, a shared government, a shared border. Now, throw all of that away. Today, we are talking about a miracle. We are talking about a team that does not represent a country, but rather a sprawling archipelago of sovereign island nations: Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua, Guyana, and others. Nations with their own governments, their own economies, and their own fierce, local rivalries. Yet, when 11 men put on a maroon cap adorned with a palm tree, those borders vanish. They become the West Indies. The history of West Indies cricket is the most romantic, the most politically charged, and the most fiercely magnificent story in the history of sport. It is a story of how the descendants of enslaved people took the gentlemanly pastime of their colonizers and turned it into an instrument of absolute, terrifying liberation. Let us go to the islands. Act 1. The Calypso Charm and the Glass Ceiling. In the early 20th century, cricket in the Caribbean was a mirror of the colonial plantation society. The teams were deeply segregated by race and class. The white elite were the captains and the batsmen. The black locals were the fast bowlers, expected to toil in the hot sun, bowl fast, and know their place. But talent cannot be kept in the dark forever. In the 1930s, a Jamaican named George Headley emerged. They called him the Black Bradman. He batted with a genius that could not be ignored, often single-handedly carrying the entire West Indian batting lineup. Following World War II, the islands produced the three W's: Everton Weekes, Clyde Walcott, and Frank Worrell. They were breathtakingly brilliant. And then came Sir Garfield Sobers, widely considered the greatest all-around cricketer who ever lived. He could bowl fast, bowl spin, field like a panther, and bat with a liquid grace that defied physics. The English and the Australians loved watching the West Indies. They called them calypso cricketers. They praised their natural rhythm, their flair, and their smiling faces. But it was a patronizing love. The establishment viewed the West Indies as brilliant entertainers who, when the pressure mounted, lacked the discipline and the intellect to win consistently. They were fun to watch, but easy to beat. And there was an unspoken, ironclad rule: no matter how many brilliant black players there were, the captain of the West Indies had to be a white man. That glass ceiling finally shattered in 1960. Following a massive public campaign led by a Caribbean journalist named C.L.R. James, Sir Frank Worrell was appointed as the first black captain for an entire series. Worrell was a statesman. He united the fractured islands and led the team to Australia, where they played the first tied test in history. Worrell proved they could lead, but it would take another man to prove they could conquer. Act 2. The Humiliation and the Epiphany. We arrive in the winter of 1975. The West Indies, captained by a towering, bespectacled Guyanese man named Clive Lloyd, traveled to Australia. The Australians unleashed a terrifying fast-bowling duo: Dennis Lillee and Jeff Thomson. They didn't just bowl the ball, they launched it at 95 miles an hour, aiming for the heads and ribs of the West Indian batsmen. Helmets were not yet a part of the game. Blood was spilled on the pitch. The West Indian batsmen were battered, bruised, and humiliated. They lost the series 5-1. In the dressing room, amidst the physical pain and the crushing defeat, Clive Lloyd had an epiphany. He realized that smiling and playing beautiful, entertaining cricket won you applause, but it didn't win you respect. Respect was taken by force. Lloyd looked around the Caribbean and realized he had an abundance of tall, powerful, fiercely athletic, fast bowlers. He decided that the West Indies would never, ever be bullied again. If the world wanted a fight, Lloyd was going to build an army. Act 3. Fire in Babylon. What happened next changed the sport forever. Lloyd assembled a quartet of fast bowlers so terrifying they became known as the Pace Battery. Andy Roberts, the calculating assassin. Michael Holding, nicknamed Whispering Death, because his run-up was so smooth and silent before unleashing sheer terror. Joel Garner, a 6'8" giant who delivered the ball from the clouds. And Colin Croft, who bowled with a vicious, unpredictable violence. Later, they added Malcolm Marshall, perhaps the greatest and smartest of them all. They did not bowl one at a time. They bowled in relentless, brutal relays. There was no respite. And then there was the batting, led by the ultimate icon of Caribbean pride, Sir Vivian Richards. Viv Richards did not wear a helmet. He wore a maroon cap, chewed gum, and walked to the crease with an aura of absolute invincibility. He looked at the fastest, most dangerous bowlers in the world with a mixture of pity and contempt. He hit the ball with a ferocious, punishing violence. This team was not just playing for a trophy. They were playing for the dignity of the Black diaspora. This was the era of the Black Power movement, of Bob Marley, of anti-apartheid struggles. To see a team of proud, uncompromising Black men travel to the heart of the British Empire and physically dominate their former colonizers was a political statement of immense magnitude. In 1976, the England captain, Tony Greig, foolishly declared on television that he intended to make the West Indies grovel. You do not tell Viv Richards and Michael Holding to grovel. The West Indies unleashed hell on the English team. They battered them into submission. They hit the stumps, they hit the bodies, and they ground the English pride into the dust. As the reggae song goes, it was fire in Babylon. Act 4. The Era of Absolute Invincibility. For the next 15 years, the West Indies were an empire. From 1980 to 1995, they did not lose a single test series anywhere in the world. Read that sentence again. 15 years. No athlete, no team in any global sport has ever sustained that level of absolute unbroken dominance. They performed a blackwash, beating England 5-0 in consecutive series. They crushed the Australians. They dismantled the Indians. They were a machine powered by immense physical fitness, ruthless aggression, and a profound, unifying pride in the maroon cap. During this era, the cricket team was the only thing that truly bound the Caribbean together. Politicians in Jamaica and Trinidad bickered over trade and economics. But when Viv Richards hit a boundary, the entire archipelago celebrated as one. The team was the physical manifestation of West Indian unity. Act 5. The Tragic Genius and the Crumbling Empire. But time is cruel, and empires fall. By the late 1990s, the great fast bowlers retired. Viv Richards retired. Clive Lloyd moved on. And the structural cracks in West Indies cricket began to show. The individual island boards began infighting. The economies of the Caribbean struggled to keep up with the massive television money pouring into England, Australia, and India. Young Caribbean athletes, who a generation earlier would have dreamed of playing cricket, were now being lured by lucrative scholarships to play basketball in America or to run track and field. The infrastructure decayed, and amidst this crumbling empire, there was one solitary, tragic genius left holding the pillars up. Brian Charles Lara. Lara was a prince from Trinidad. He possessed a high backlift and a sweeping, poetic elegance that was utterly mesmerizing. He was, without question, one of the greatest batsmen to ever hold a piece of willow. He broke the world record for the highest individual score in a test match, hitting 375 against England. 10 years later, when someone broke his record, Lara simply went out and scored 400 not out to take it back. But Lara was a lonely king. He would score brilliant, double centuries, but the team around him would collapse. The West Indies went from the most feared team on earth to a team that routinely suffered humiliating defeats. The pride turned to frustration, and the frustration turned to a deep, lingering sorrow. Act 6. The Mercenaries and the Spark. As we moved into the 21st century, cricket changed. The invention of 2020, the short, frantic, 3-hour version of the game, created franchise leagues all over the world. The West Indian players, blessed with natural power and athleticism, were perfectly built for T20. Chris Gayle, the self-proclaimed universe boss, hitting sixes onto the roofs of stadiums. Kieran Pollard, Andre Russell, Dwayne Bravo. They became global superstars. They became millionaires, traveling from India to Australia to Pakistan, playing for private franchises. But this created a bitter civil war. The West Indies Cricket Board could not afford to pay these players what the franchises were offering. The players argued they had to secure their financial futures. The board accused them of turning their backs on the maroon cap. The Test team, the historical soul of Caribbean cricket, was stripped of its best players and left to wither. Yet, the magic of the islands was still there. In 2012 and again in 2016, the West Indies united their superstars and won the T20 World Cup. In 2016, Carlos Brathwaite hit 4 consecutive sixes in the final, over to snatch the trophy, prompting the immortal commentary, "Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name." They proved that on their day, in the short format, they were still kings. But the 5-day test match legacy felt like a ghost story told to children. Epilogue: The Bleeding Toe at the Gabba. Which brings us to January 2024. The West Indies sent a young, inexperienced, heavily depleted test team to Australia. Nobody gave them a chance. They were playing at the Gabba in Brisbane, a fortress where Australia rarely loses. In the second innings, a 24-year-old fast bowler from a remote village in Guyana named Shamar Joseph was hit on the toe by a 90-mile-an-hour delivery. His toe was bleeding and suspected broken. He retired hurt. He wasn't supposed to bowl the next day. But the next morning, fueled by painkillers and an ancestral fire, Joseph took the ball. Bowling over 90 miles an hour, limping between deliveries, he bowled 11.5 consecutive overs of pure, unadulterated hostility. He tore through the Australian batting lineup, taking 7 wickets for 68 runs. When he knocked over the final stump to win the match for the West Indies by just 8 runs, he didn't just celebrate. He sprinted toward the boundary, tears in his eyes, beating his chest where the West Indies crest lay. It was their first test victory in Australia in 27 years. Brian Lara, commentating in the broadcast box, broke down in tears, crying, "This is West Indies cricket standing tall." So, what is the history of West Indies cricket? It is the story of a shattered map glued together by a red leather ball. It is the story of how sport can be a vehicle for racial emancipation, political defiance, and profound joy. They may no longer rule the world the way they did in 1984. The money may be elsewhere. But the heartbeat of the game, the pure, raw, emotional soul of cricket, will always belong to the Caribbean. Because when a fast bowler wearing maroon hits the crease and a batsman stands tall against the setting sun, they are not just playing a game. They are reminding the world of who they are. Thank you for watching this video.